The Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Sens is a Latin Rite archdiocese of the Roman Catholic Church in France. The archdiocese comprises the department of Yonne, in the region of Bourgogne. Traditionally established in sub-apostolic times, the diocese's metropolis of Courteleu-Gonense has subsequently achieved metropolitical status. For a time, the Archbishop of Sens held the title, Primate of the Gauls and Germania. Until 1622, it numbered 7 suffragan dioceses. The dioceses of Chartres, Auxerre, Meaux, Paris, Orléans, Nevers and Troyes, which inspired the acronym CAMPONT. The Diocese of Bethlehem at Clamecy was also dependent on the Metropolitan See of Sens. The archdiocese is a suffragan of Dijon and consequently no longer wears the pallium. The archbishop is Yves-François Paternotre, whose cathedra is at Sens Cathedral. History. Until the French Revolution, the Archbishop of Sens was also Viscount of Sens. In 1622, Paris had been elevated to a metropolitan see and the sees of Chartres, Orléans and Meaux were separated from the Archdiocese of Sens. In return, the Abbey of Mont Saint-Martin in the Diocese of Cambrai was united to the Archiepiscopate. It was suppressed by the Napoleonic Concordat of 1802, which annexed to the Roman Catholic Diocese of Troyes the dioceses of Sens and Auxerre. The somewhat complex agreement gave the title of Bishop of Auxerre to the bishops of Troyes, and the purely honorary title of Archbishop of Sens to the Archbishop of Paris. The Concordat of 1817 re-established the Archdiocese of Sens and the Diocese of Auxerre, but this arrangement did not last. The Law of July 1821, the Pontifical Brief of 4 September 1821 and the Royal Ordinance of 19 October 1821 suppressed the Diocese of Auxerre and gave to the Archdiocese of Sens the department of the Yonne and the dioceses of Troyes, Nevers and Moulins. A papal brief of 3 June 1823 gave to the Archbishop of Sens the title of Bishop of Auxerre. The Archbishop of Sens continued to reside at Sens until the 1920s, but is now resident at Auxerre. In 2002, Sens-Auxerre lost its metropolitan functions with the creation of an archbishopric for the Burgundy administrative region at Dijon. The history of the religious beginnings of the Church at Sens dates from Savinian and Patention, and through legend to the dioceses of Chartres, Troyes and Orléans. Gregory of Tours is silent regarding Savinian and Patention, founders of the See of Sens. The Hieronymi and Martyrology, which was revised before 600 at Auxerre, ignores them. The cities of Chartres and Troyes have nothing about these men in their local liturgy prior to the 12th century, and that of Orléans nothing prior to the 15th, pertaining to the preaching of Altinus, Eudaldus and Seretinus. Before the 9th century there was a group of tombs, among which are those of the first bishops of Sens. In 847, the transfer of their remains to the Church of Saint Pierre le Vif inspired popular devotion towards Savinian and Patention. In 848, Wandlebert of Prüm named them the first patrons of the Church of Sens. Edu, in his Martyrology published shortly afterwards, speaks of them as envoys of the apostles and as martyrs. The Martyrology of Usuad depicts them as envoys of the Roman pontiff and martyrs. In the middle of the 10th century the relics of these two saints were hidden in a subterranean vault of the Abbey of Saint Pierre le Vif to escape the pillage of the Hungarians. But in 1031 they were placed in a reliquary established by the monk Odoran. This monk speaks of Altinus, Eudaldus, and Seretinus as apostolic companions of Savinian and Patention, but does not view them as legitimate. In a document which dates from the end of the 6th century or the beginning of the 7th, but according to Louis Duchesne, who labels the Gerbertine legend as written in 1046 and 1079 under the inspiration of Gerbert, abbot of Saint Pierre le Vif, is first described a legend tracing to Savinian and Patention the evangelization of the churches of Orléans, Chartres and Troyes. After some uncertainty, the legend became fixed in the Chronicle of Clarius, compiled about 1120. The Christian faith could not have been preached at Sens in the 2nd century. But we know from Sidonius Apollinaris that in 475 the Church of Sens had its 13th bishop. The list of bishops does not indicate that the episcopal see existed prior to the second half of the 3rd century or the beginning of the 4th. Bishops and archbishops. Before 1000 AD, among the bishops of Sens in the 4th century were Saint Severinus, present at the Council of Sardica in 344. Saint Ursicinus, exiled to Phrygia under Constantius through the influence of the Arians. Visited by Saint Hilary on his return to Sens after 3 years of exile, around 386 he founded at Sens the monastery of Sts. Gervasius and Protasius. 5th century Street. Ambrose. Saint Agrasius, bishop around 475. Saint Heraclius, founder of the monastery of Saint John the Evangelist at Sen. 6th century Street. Paul. Saint Leo, who sent Street Aspes to evangelize Milan. Saint Artemius, present at the councils of 581 and 585, who admitted to public penance the Spaniard Street bond and made a holy hermit from a criminal. 7th century Street. Lupus, bishop between around 609 and 623, son of Blessed Better of the royal house of Burgundy and Saint Astragilda. Saint Gondalbertus, whose episcopate is documented only by traditions of Sennes Abbey dating from the 11th century. Saint Arnoul. Saint Eamon, who around late 668 received the monk Hadrian, sent to England with Archbishop Theodore. Saint Ame Acute, exiled to Peronne by Ebroin. His name is suppressed by Duchesne as having been introduced to the episcopal lists in the 10th century. Saint Wulfran, a monk of Fontenelle, who soon left the See of Sens to evangelize Frisia and died at Fontenelle before 704. Saint Gary, Bishop c. 696. 8th century Street. Ebo, at first abbot of Saint Pierre le Vif, bishop before 711. In 731 he placed himself at the head of his people to compel the Saracens to lift the siege of Sens. His successor, Saint Marulf Hartbert, named in the Acts of the Council of Soissons. 9th century Magnus, former court chaplain of Charlemagne, bishop before 802 and author of a handbook of legislation he used when traveling as Mrs. Dominicus, died after 817. Jeremias, ambassador at Rome of Louis the Pious in the affair of the iconoclasts, died in 828. Saint Alderic, former abbot of Ferrières, consecrated abbot of Saint Maud as Prevost at Paris in 832. Venelone anointed Charles the Bald on 6 June 843 at the Cathedral of Orleans. To the detriment of the Archbishopric of Reims, his chorepiscopus was Audradis Modicus, author of theological writings including the poem De Fonte Vitae and the Book of Revelations, in which he sought to end the rift between Louis the Pious' sons. In 859 Charles the Bald accused Venelone at the Council of Saviniers of having betrayed him. The matter resolved itself, but Venelone was still considered guilty. The name of the traitor Ganelon is a corruption of Venelone. And Segasis, at the death of Emperor Louis II, negotiated at Rome for Charles the Bald, bringing the letter of Pope John VIII inviting Charles to receive the imperial crown. And Segasis was named by John VIII primate of the Gauls and Germania and vicar of the Holy See for France and Germany, and at the Council of Ponthieu was installed above the other metropolitans despite the Hincmars' opposition. In 880, he anointed Louis the Younger and Carloman II in the Abbey of Ferrières. During the time of Archbishop Ansegasis, while the See of Sens exercised primacy, a cleric compiles the Ecclesiastical Annals of Sens, a history of the first two French dynasties. 10th century Walter, anointed Eudes in 888, Robert I in July 922, and Rudolph of France on 13 July 923 in the Church of Saint Medard at Soissons. He inherited from his uncle Voltaire a sacramentary composed between 855 and 873 for the Abbey of Saint Amand at Puel. This document is an example of Carolingian art and is now in the National Library of Sweden. Saint Anastasius Savinus presided at the Council of St. Barl and incurred the disfavor of Hugh Capet by his opposition to the deposition of Arnul. 1000 to 1500 Gelduinus was deposed for simony by Pope Leo IX at the Council of Reims. The second half of the 11th century saw a decline in prestige for the Diocese of Sens. Under the episcopate of Richelieu, Pope Urban II withdrew primatial authority from the See of Sens to confer it on the Archbishopric of Lyon, and Richelieu died without having accepted this decision. His successor Daimbert was consecrated at Rome in March 1098 after giving assurance that he recognized the primacy of Lyons. Bishop Henry Sanglier caused the condemnation by a council in 1140 of certain propositions of Abelard. The see regained prestige under Hugues de Touchy, who at Orleans in 1152 crowned Constance despite protests by the Archbishop of Reims, and under whose episcopate Pope Alexander III installed the pontifical court at Sens for 18 months on the advice of the bishops. Later bishops of Sens were Guillaume Blanchismains, son of Thibaud II, Count of Champagne, uncle of King Philip Augustus and first cousin of Henry II of France, who in 1172 in the name of Pope Alexander III placed the Kingdom of England under an interdict and in 1176 became Archbishop of Reims. Gui de Noyers, Michael of Corbeil, who combated the Manichaean sect of publicans. Peter of Corbeil, who had been professor of theology to Pope Innocent III. Philippe de Marigny. William of Paris, who was also Inquisitor of France. Pierre Roger, later Clement VI. Guillaume de Brosset, who erected at one of the doorways of the Cathedral of Sens an equestrian statue of Philip VI of Valois to perpetuate the remembrance of the victory won by the clergy over the pretensions of Pierre de Cugnières. Guillaume de Milan, who with King John II was taken prisoner by the English at the Battle of Poitiers in 1356. Guy de Roy, Guillaume de Dormans, Jean de Montagu, killed at the Battle of Agincourt. Henry de Savoisy, who at Troyes in 1420 blessed the marriage of Henry V of England and Catherine of France. Jean Nanton, Louis de Milan, Tristan de Salazar, who concluded the first treaty of alliance between France and Switzerland. After 1500 Etienne de Poncher 1519–1524, Antoine Duprat 1525–1535, Louis de Bourbon Vendôme 1535–1557, Jean Bertrand 1557–1560, Louis de Lorraine 1560–1562, Nicolas de Pellevey 1562–1592, Renaud de Beaune 1595, Cardinal du Perron 1606–1618, Jean-Davy du Perron 1618–1621, Octave de Saint-Clary de Bellegarde 1621–1646, Louis Henry de Pardaillan de Gondrine 1646–1674, Jean de Montpezat de Carbon 1674–1685, Hardwin Fortin de la Hoguette 1685–1715, Denis François Le Bouthelier de Chavigny 1716–1730, Jean-Joseph Languet de Gourgy 1730–1753, Paul d'Albert de Luynes 1753–1788, Loménie de Brienne 1788–93, Minister of Louis XVI, Cardinal in 1788. During the French Revolution he swore to the civil constitution of the clergy but refused to consecrate the first constitutional bishops. returned to the Pope his cardinal's hat, refused to become constitutional Bishop of Toulouse, was twice imprisoned by the Jacobins of Sens and died in prison of apoplexy. Anne, Cardinal de la Fère 1821–29, Jean-Joseph Marie Victoire de Cosnac 1829–1843, Charles-André Toussaint Bruno Raymond de la Lande 1843, Mellon de Joly 1843–1867, Victor Félix Bernardou 1867–1891, Pierre-Marie Etienne Gustave Arden 1892–1911, Jean-Victor Émile Chesnelong 1912–1931, Maurice Feltin 1932–1935, Frédéric-Édouard Camille Lamy 1936–1962, René Louis Marie Storm 1962–1977, Eugene Marie Ernault 1977–1990, Gerard Denis Auguste de Foix 1990–1995, Georges Edmond Robert Gilson 1996–2004, Yves-François Paternotre 2004–2015, Hervé Jean-Robert Giraud 2015–present. Councils of Sens. A large number of church councils were held at Sens between 600 and 1485. The first involved a controversy over the date of Easter, which meant that St. Columbanus refused to attend. The Council of 1140 condemned the writings of Abelard. The Council of 1198 was concerned with the Manichaean sect of Poplicani. Bibliography. Irene Plein. Die Frugetische Sculptur in der Westfassade der Kathedral von Sen. Riemer Verlag, Munster 2005, ISBN 9783930454440-2.